Hi, I'm Andy Acton.
And I'm Chris Strevens.
This is Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. This is the best part of what we do, isn't it, recording the podcast?
I think it's just chatting, basically, but it feels like working, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, don't tell anyone that. The secret will get out.
It's highly important. Well, it is important, actually. It's just, it's nice to chatting to people, really.
It is. And genuinely, we say that we are building a body of work for dentists to lean back on. To find out about the business side of this great profession.
Sounds very important, the body of work,
it does.
Doesn't it? A body of work.
It is important.
Suddenly it'll become really serious. Well, I'll have to change my voice for it.
Let's introduce our guest. So today we have a returning guest. We have Dr. Mahrukh Khwaja joining us, and Mahrukh is a dentist, positive psychologist and founder of Mind Ninja, which is fabulous. So welcome back, Mahrukh. How are you?
Hello.
Really good. Thank you so much for having me back on.
No, not at all. Just to start with, this question gets thrown around all the time. But how are you?
I'm actually really, really good. Like, honestly, I'm feeling the best, especially in my business life as well, because obviously that goes hand in hand, doesn't it? It's taken me, I think, a long time with business, with Mind Ninja, but I finally feel as though I'm in a good place. I know financially where it's going. I've got a vision. And
brilliant.
Yeah, just feel really, really good.
Brilliant. Yeah, because when did we first speak to you? The book had come out or was about to come out? I can't remember now.
I think it was just about to come out.
Wow.
Yes, yeah.
When was that? A year and a half ago?
So it came out January last year.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind since then. But yeah, it's been quite the ride, and I'm really excited about the future.
So this book, it's Resilience and Wellbeing for Dental Professionals. And I remember the launch well because you held it it was in the Meunier chocolate factory, wasn't it, on the South Bank, which is a fantastic location for the event. And it was great. It was really uplifting. Everybody seemed to really enjoy the night. It was great fun. How's the book been received by the profession since it's been released?
I've had really great feedback, which has been amazing. Lots of personal messages sent over to me. From my perspective, I really wanted to create something really practical that you could use both with patients and at home, as well as have organisations kind of create courses with it. And so from my perspective, it's really nice to see NHS Health Education Midlands kind of pick that up. I've been working with them actually since January last year. So kind of the same time that the book came out, and they ordered a bulk of the toolkits as well as the book, and I use them in my resilience program. So from my perspective, I feel like there's a lot of talk about well-being, but often when we signpost dental professionals, it tends to be kind of generic services that we're signposting rather than bespoke things. And so, yeah, I really wanted to create something that resonated with us because, quite frankly, we're working with patients. It's slightly different for us in terms of the stresses. And yeah, that was the kind of purpose behind the book. And really look at all different aspects of well-being, not just mindfulness and self-compassion, but also kind of work-life harmony, creating habits that stick, and behavioural change. All of these are kind of really crucial and underpin our well-being, as well as things like peak performance.
The NHS thing was amazing. I remember, I think it might have been you that sparked it off in a conversation or something. Something appeared in the press, and I remember we had a conversation. It was about the NHS, and they were saying how many days were lost predominantly to mental health, and it was something I can't remember now, but is it something like 6 million days a year or something was lost to people being off, of which they attributed the vast majority to mental health. And I can remember we had a conversation. We said, if you could sort of halve that, how many people would get seen in hospitals? And it's that whole sort of snowball effect. It really struck me because you sort of know about it, but when it was a number, it was like, whoa, that's a big number.
Well, was there part of your book that resonated more than another? It's quite an encompassing book. It's kind of resilience and well-being, but well-being is quite a big topic, isn't there? Was there one particular area where people saying this is the thing that I need help with?
I think the chapter on emotions and understanding emotions better that seems to resonate quite a bit with dental professionals. So I actually have a table explaining all the potential psychological tools that you can use in the different scenarios. And I think that kind of really hit home, as well as the different stories that I had in the book that drew upon kind of current media. So media references like movies. And for me, I think that really brings this conversation to life, actually, because sometimes it's quite difficult, especially when we're kind of new to a topic. So exploring self-compassion through the eyes of Bridget Jones. This is a movie that's well loved, but actually exploring that concept better, and even exploring things like perfectionism through that character, I think really, really resonated. So I had a lot of students and professionals kind of reach out and say, actually, I love that bit. And interestingly, that was the part that Wiley were not happy about.
Really?
Yeah.
That's your publisher, isn't it?
That was my publisher.
Yeah.
And I got the publisher to read the book. And I said, we're loving it, but actually, I think you should take out those references. There's pop culture references. No, it's a serious book. And I never wanted it to be a serious textbook, a typical book. It needs to be colourful, bold, really practical, lots of work sheets. And for me, having those pop culture references made sense. And actually, we can draw upon a lot of them. Even, there's so many amazing Disney references in the book as well that I think really explain a lot of these psychological concepts that are kind of hard to grasp otherwise. So I think that's been like really nice to draw upon that. So you've got, movies like Mulan exploring like resilience. You've got, there's so many kind of different areas to draw upon.
It makes it real though, doesn't it? Yeah. Stuff like that. It's a bit like, to me, it strikes me a bit like the Haynes, those of our listeners that are old enough. It's like the Haynes manual. You used to buy a Haynes manual for any car you had that told you how it worked. And that sounds like what your book is. It's not a textbook. It's not dry and pithy.
But what I love as well is you're right. I think stories are incredibly powerful anyway. Yeah. And I think if people aren't in tune with their emotions and they don't really know how to express them or how they feel, if they can look at a character of some sort and go, and they recognise something in themselves, that might be really helpful in terms of them understanding themselves through a third party. Because if people really touch their emotions, I guess they're kind of coping and they're understanding. But if they're not, having a character to look at, I think I can see how that would be really helpful.
Wellbeing's a bit sort of esoterical and fluffy, isn't it, in a way, unless you really think about it, unless you help people. So the danger is that they don't really think about it. I'm just sort of thinking in my head that to use someone like Mulan or one of those other characters is a great one, isn't it? Because it says, look, because you're watching it anyway. It's
and good really to you for sticking to your guns and saying, no, they have to stay in.
Yeah, no, for me, that was like the best part. Why would I take that out? I want to make everything I do really fun, engaging. That was my top priority, actually. So obviously I do want to really break down the psychology in a easy way that you can access. So I've got the kind of the evidence-based side, which for Wiley obviously really crucial, considering they publish these kind of books. But from my perspective, I want something that you want to pick up. And so the design was really important. The way I present it is important. And I don't know about you, but a lot of our books, I don't know if you've noticed with these dental textbooks, they tend to be very text heavy. And so, that's where I really wanted it to be readable. There's that. So, and we've managed to, which is really cool, we've managed to get the book in quite a few dental unis, which is epic. And it's taken actually the student ambassadors that have loads of persistence from their end, because it's actually not very easy to get students to get books into libraries. But we've managed to get it in King's, UCLan, we've got it in Leeds, Sheffield. So there's quite a number of
great, isn't it? Yeah.
Bart soon. So it's been a real kind of effort in that respect. And I'm looking.
But also, I think the book I think the book kind of is an extension of you, because we met recently at the Dental Showcase exhibition and you had a stand, which was really exciting. But your stand, again, was fun and it was bright and it was colourful and it was welcoming and you had sofas. So in terms of that congruence, the whole thing fits together. So
And it had a chief happiness officer.
there
Was
was.
that
Yeah, you had,
there was.
your chief
Well,
happiness officer. Yeah.
So, I want even like everyone in the team had really fun like roles. So my husband was then the chief cheerleader, and my brother was the ambassador.
Was he pleased about that, your husband?
He was actually. You know what?
He didn't have any pom poms though, Mark. I can't.
But he actually suggested that, because I was going to come up with something like really grand for him, but he was like, no, I definitely want it to be like fun, and so I kind of took the lead from him. But yeah, I'm really glad that the brand, it's really clear, and I want it to be clear. Like, it is about making well-being fun and accessible, and you know, I hope that comes across. I love the sofa element as well. So we had so many well-being chats, and you never know how these events will go. And it was my first time exhibiting, but it was amazing. I got really interesting convos, dentists, dental professionals, hygienists, nurses coming to talk to me and actually sharing some really deep stuff, you know, bipolar diagnoses, being struck off the CQC, like really conversations you're not really expecting.
On a stand. On a trade stand. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You always seem very busy whenever I looked over, because we were not that far away from you. You always seem to have someone on there chatting away.
What's your take from that event, accepting it was only a 2-day event and there's obviously only a certain number of people and type of people that went, but what's your kind of gauge in terms of the temperature of dentistry based on that event and the people that came to your stand? Do you think there is a bit of a wellbeing epidemic going on out there, or is it a bit like we were saying before, does it mean that people are now just finding a place that they can talk about these things? How do you gauge where the profession's at the moment?
I think there's a real appetite for talking about well-being and mental health and sharing openly about burnout than ever before. So, you know, I had, like I said, all different members of the team come in and approach me, and they just really got it. It was just really clear. All you had to say was, you know, we're My Ninja, and we're on a mission to really spread the use of evidence-based tools. Burnout rates are really high, and they were like, yeah, we get it. It's really, really tough out there. So I think before the pandemic, it might have been more of a convo where maybe certain members didn't quite understand. But yeah, everyone seemed to kind of really get, as a healthcare professional, you're constantly looking after other people. You know, we're not often looking after ourselves. So that piece seemed to really resonate. And from my perspective, nothing beats that personal connection. So I never have, like, I loved the book launch, and I loved the events that I've done so far, but this was great. Like, I really got to talk to the profession and customers as well. I got to understand their pain points even more, which was wicked. And got to understand the type of person that likes these products and is interested in well-being. So from that kind of, even the business side of things, it was really interesting having those convos and realizing, well, this is the type of person that's super keen. But I also had really interesting convos with dental organisations. So they came and they wanted to potentially do some sort of collab, but also even other partners like dental professionals that are like in charge of like the community dental services. So I had the CEO of a community dental service come, and we sat on the sofa and we had this convo, and she's an older lady, and you always think that, you know, with the older generation, you do have this view that they're not going to get it. They're going to be like, these
stiff upper lip, just get on with it.
Just get on with it. Like, these young ones just don't know how to handle stress. But it was really refreshing that she got it. She'd actually been to the talk with Sarah Hurley, and she was really spotlighting that actually there's a big problem amongst community dentists and dental professionals, because they're actually managing all the vulnerable patients. So obviously their burnout rates are going to be higher, and we need to address this. So really nice to have those convos with some of the key players that can make a big difference. Especially in terms of organisational change, which we need great. It's not just the stress management side, but it's also the culture side. And that's, you get the buy-in from higher up, then this is how, we can make real positive change.
It's great with the books, isn't it? As you were saying, in the students, because if you start there, then the answer is they should be more recognition of their own issues and other people's. I love the fact that you had people from all the team, so you didn't just have dentists. You had, by sounds of things, everybody.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It doesn't discriminate, does it? It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter whether you're a man, a woman, rich, poor.
Absolutely.
It cuts across everybody, doesn't it? Before you took this segue in your kind of career path, you started out qualified as a dentist, and you still are a dentist. Are you still clinical? Are you still doing a couple of days a week?
Yeah, so I do 2 days with patients a week, which I absolutely love now. It's actually really interesting, pivoting and finding that my clinical work is a lot more meaningful as a result of being happier, and actually feeling like I'm living my purpose. So, and I certainly use loads of psychology with patients. So it's actually really, really helpful. It's so connected. I mean, I think we do need to have a key understanding of psychology to help our patients with behavioral change. So, things like helping them to give up smoking, exploring stress management and kind of the root cause of things like grinding. Obviously, they all have psychological causes. And so just really talking to patients on a human level is so, so crucial in building those like strong patient-clinician bonds and creating a list, that actually loves you, patients that love you, that kind of keep coming back and seeing you. That's the human touch, and that's where psychology actually is really beneficial. So the type of dentistry I like to do is I talk to a patient for a while, and then I do a few seconds of dentistry. That's like... and that was actually why I even went into the profession. I did some work experience, and the dentist was that type of dentist. He had this incredible bond with his patients, and there'll be, patients that don't want to talk, and that's fine. But then there's other patients, and I've been in the practice for 7 years now, that absolutely know me and I know them. And it's great. I've gone through their struggles of divorce or death or loss or whatever it may be. So sometimes it is a bit of a therapy session, and I love it.
Brilliant. I suppose they feel comfortable then, don't they, with you? In the fact, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about the grinding thing. There probably is something that's behind that. So if you can talk to someone to find out what's behind that, then that's a real help, isn't it?
And I'd have also thought, staying on the front line of dentistry, it helps you inform yourself on the right sort of tools for the profession, because you're one of the people that you're designing services to support and help. So I'd have thought it makes you way more empathetic when dealing with other dentists and other dental professionals, because you're in their situation a couple of days a week.
Yeah, absolutely. I really understand the pressures under the NHS. And so when I do my workshops or coaching or programs or create products, I really kind of understand our stresses. And I've gone through depression and burnout. So I really do understand it on an experiential level, which is really, really crucial. And I often get that, in conversation when I talk to dental professionals, they make that as a point as well. Like they're wanting to know if I'm practicing clinically, and they're wanting to feel as though they are understood. This is what we're talking about. So, it can be another psychologist that could lead that session, or a therapist. There's so many possibilities, and that can work well as well. But there is that advantage of having
absolutely
hat and being a dentist. That's to kind of connect in that way.
You mentioned that you've suffered your own bout of kind of burnout and depression, and you said that that's kind of led you to study a diploma in organisational psychology. What is organisational psychology? That was a new phrase for me.
Yeah, so probably the easiest way to describe it is it's a branch of psychology that explores workplace well-being. So actually what I've been doing throughout my ninja's life, so we're 5 years into the business now, I founded it in 2019, is actually organizational psychology. I just haven't labeled it that way, but I really wanted to delve into it more. I have a master's in applied positive psych, which is a branch of psychology really focused on what makes people and organizations thrive. And I had a module on organizational psychology, but I want to delve into that more.
Right.
And the wider goal is to really help organizations when it comes to creating well-being plans and initiatives for the whole team. And also not just dental professionals, but also I'm kind of broadening out. So looking at
any business.
other healthcare professionals, but also in dental organizations, the sales teams and the other teams that are supporting dental professionals, they also need the support. So I'm finding ways that I can support them, and I'm currently doing something with Action actually with their sales team, exploring well-being by doing an audit to begin with to assess their well-being needs. But essentially this diploma will help me delve into this in a lot more detail, and I'm really passionate about workplace well-being.
I mean, expanding your services to support the wider profession makes sense, because I guess all people get affected by this in different ways.
Well-being's across everything, isn't it?
And when you think about the profession, a very small minority actually hold a handpiece. There's thousands of other people who support the profession. Action, they'd have a sales team, they'll have technical people, they'll have managers. It's a business in its own right. All those people will be affected to this in the same way. The tools that you've developed, I guess, whilst they're pointed towards the dental profession, I assume it's relatively straightforward for those just to become broader and more generic for non-dentists as well. This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Ultimate Dental Business. We know as guys who have supported dentists for over 25 years and through hosting this podcast that building business skills in dentistry is vital. Time and again, we hear from dentists who tell us that they find the business side of dentistry the most challenging. And we know that stress and pressure comes from doing things we don't feel well equipped to do. That is why we are delighted to be part of Ultimate Dental Business, the new dental business hub delivering top-tier business training for dentists. Founded by Dr. Brad Thornton and Dr. Krupal Shah, Ultimate Dental Business is a response to the lack of robust dental business education currently available. Through our effective collective discussions with dentists, it was clear they most needed good structure and effective guidance to give them the knowledge and tools to be successful dental business owners, and to create a business that serves them rather than the business that takes all their time and energy to keep going. To find out more about developing your own business education, click on the link in the show notes or go to ultimatedentalbusiness.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually launched last year a mindfulness toolkit for the general public. And so my vision going forward with products is to create products both for dental that are very specific, but also for outside of dentistry as well. So anyone that's not working directly with patients, I think that we continue to kind of create those products in the future because I want to make a wider impact. I want to do this more and more. So,
how's the general public one been received? Have you been promoting it? Is it going well?
Yeah, it's going really well. You know what? It's a completely different kettle of fish because I haven't built an audience with the general public. So it's very much
sort of new.
And it's not B2B, which has been my business model with My Ninja mostly. It would be a B2C model, which, as you know, very, very different.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I'm really, really excited. I've got a few workshops booked. I'm doing a workshop with the toolkit with creators from ethnic minorities and helping them. A lot of content creators and founders are really struggling with well-being. So I've got a few events coming up and really, really excited. I've got a social media campaign that I'm going to launch as well, which is a storytelling campaign, which explores what a mindfulness journey looks like. So I really want to give like a BTS look around mindfulness and what that looks like, infusing that from a storytelling perspective. Because I love hearing those kind of stories and a really like candid look into how you build a positive habit.
And can I just ask, do people pay for that? Is that they sort of pay a subscription or something or a book, or what is it? How does that
So
sort of
I
work?
have a toolkit. It's like a physical toolkit, similar
Right.
to the mind flossing, and it's called Navigating a Squiggly Life.
I must admit, I think mind flossing is a
Excellent.
cracking phrase.
Thank you.
I bet when you got that, I bet you thought, that's a
it.
good day's work.
Yeah.
Get the copyright on that
I
one.
do love it. I do love it. But yeah, so this new one, it's called Navigating a Squiggly Life. Can I grab it?
Yeah,
So-
go on, let's have a
of course
look.
you can, yeah.
Let's have a look. I like that.
So,
Navigating a
you know,
squiggly
anyone
life.
who's interested in getting
Oh, nice.
for their loved one, this could be it. So the way it differs, obviously the content is a bit different, but I've also got journaling worksheets. So you've got QR codes that you can scan. So this is one example. So you scan the QR code and it takes you to either a guided meditation or a worksheet that you can fill online. So again, I want to make it super interactive, and that was the reason for creating it. And
I'll
then,
tell you what, Mahrukh, could you send us the link
yes,
to that Squiggly Life toolkit?
Yeah,
that's
And we'll
brilliant.
put it in the guest notes. So
Yeah, that'd be
if people
great.
listening through, because like you say, I guess whilst this is a podcast that goes to the dental profession, they're going to have partners, friends, family,
Yeah, definitely.
who aren't. So having access to that, I think would be really useful. I love the look of it as well.
thank you.
It
Yeah,
looks
really
approachable, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That's what I like, is the fact it's
Yeah.
approachable.
Yeah, I want that vibe for my illustrations, like really,
Yeah.
really compassionate, kind, colourful, something you want to pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You need someone to be able to want to pick it up as opposed to have to pick it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You know, like as you say with the doll textbook, you have to do it. So you know you have to. You might not enjoy it, but something like this, you want someone to go, oh yeah, oh that looks good.
But
Oh,
also,
right, I've enjoyed
this,
that.
This whole kind of pathway that you're taking people down is exploring the art of the possible and exploring emotions. So if it was just words on a page, you're hardly creating the right sort of creative environment
No.
for them to really think about what they could be and what things bother them and how they feel about things.
Well,
So,
we've learned so much about how to educate, education principles, haven't we, in this business that we're building, and you never really think about it, and now you realise
it has to be so interactive.
it has to really hit the mark, otherwise people
I
just don't
think
do it.
the attention span is down to somewhere between sort of 6 and 8 minutes. at
You
the
were saying?
moment. So, yeah. So, given that we're nearly 30 minutes into this episode, yeah, I don't know how many people are still with us.
Hello, come back.
But it's true, isn't it? I think people find it really hard to stay engaged. And I guess the more you can make it interesting, the more it bounces around.
Yeah,
But there's
definitely.
a thread of learning that carries on through the process. It's not an easy thing to do.
yeah, it's not easy, but like you were saying, it's so crucial and it's quite exciting. I love that challenge. And as a kind of forever learner myself, love of learning is one of my top strengths. And so I'm constantly thinking, how can I create something that is different, that can really help make this fun and engaging? And absolutely, that matters. And so, yeah, hopefully that is really evident with all the My Ninja products.
She's on a mission, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not just a book. You're on a mission.
Exactly. And I hear you're facilitating a resilience program for, is it NHS Education Midlands, which is exciting. Is there a shift towards the understanding of the need to build resilience? Is there a change in that direction? You say you've been working with them for quite a while, and now it's turned into a program. Is that progress quite slow in that direction?
Is that slow? Yeah, I mean, I think I'm slightly biased because I think it is really slow, but I'm in this space. I would probably think that.
Probably
But
welcome to the NHS, I mean.
to be honest, I'm actually feeling really grateful and hopeful that there is one deanery that's so passionate about this. And honestly, these programs do not exist if you do not get buy-in from deans.
Yeah.
So it was really the Dean of Education in the Midlands, and then Associate Dean Fleur Collette, really passionate about well-being and supporting, the younger generation. And so she actually heard about me through someone else, another principal, and then got in touch last year.
Wow.
So I do think with the pandemic, there is a greater understanding of what
Definitely.
mental well-being looks
Definitely.
like everyone's been impacted to some sort of degree. And so there's an awareness piece around resilience a little bit more, like in the general public, I think. And so that helps.
I'm fascinated on resilience. I always had resilience being down one of those things that you build through lived experience. So, you play a sports match and you lose, and you learn what it is to lose, and you add that to your armory of things in life. I'm fascinated how a program on resilience works in terms of how people learn about resilience, because I always had it down as one of those things that you develop through lived experience as opposed to via a program. So what does it actually look like?
So you can actually develop resilience through lived experience as well. But the idea behind programs is for you to learn those, really develop that muscle of resilience through learning the key kind of skills. And so actually we used to think in psychology probably a decade ago that there was a very fixed level of resilience. There's certain people that were more resilient than others, but actually we know that the brain is neuroplastic and has this beautiful kind of ability to change through, our positive habits, and can rewire at any age. And so, all the research, all the data supports that you can develop programs and teach anyone, any of these skills. These are critical kind of life skills. So whether that's resilience or whether that's mindfulness or self-compassion muscle or growth mindset, these are all muscles of the mind that you can develop. And so when we think about resilience, the definition I like to draw upon that really, I think, explains it much better than the bounce back analogy, because I really don't like that one. And a lot of psychologists, we kind of veer against that one, is that resilience is a journey which we navigate and we grow through challenges and adversities. And you've got a couple of components with that. Firstly, it's a journey, and there's a growth aspect to it. So it's a lot more compassionate than bounce back. The way to grow is through internal psychological resources and external. So external could be through getting a therapist, a coach or mentor, or your positive support groups. The internal stuff is the stuff that I work on in these kind of resilience programs that I do. And that's, very much about, being able to think flexibly, to really unhook from unhelpful thoughts, to be able to regulate your emotions, your self-awareness, those aspects that are really kind of fundamental for you to develop resilience.
Do you notice, and this is an old bloke here, is there something in ages, or is it the fact of maybe younger people are more willing to talk about it, and actually older people have it, they're just less willing to talk about it? So it's not actually that younger people are less resilient, it's just the fact that maybe they're more open about being less resilient, and the older people suffer the same things, but they just don't want to share it. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, having spoken to a lot of older dental professionals, they really, really share that they went through all sorts of tough parts in dentistry, had deep struggles, but it was a different culture then. They couldn't share. They had to get on with it. They suffered the consequences. And so from the way I think of it is, it's not that younger people are not able to cope with things. We have to also remember that younger dental professionals are actually dealing with a whole new landscape in dentistry. You've got social media. I didn't grow up with social media as a dental student. And I didn't grow up with the same level of news as well. The negativity around dentistry, as well as NHS dentistry, is very, very high. The fear of litigation is super high as well. They're actually handling different stressors. And so I'm very compassionate towards the younger generation. They're dealing with other things. And what's exciting, I do think they are more open to talking about what's actually going on. They're interested in perhaps not, going down the path of working so hard to the point where you don't have time for yourself, you can't care for yourself. They're really interested in a different kind of life that perhaps we didn't explore when I was a student. And so I really respect that. They're looking for happiness at work. And these are the steps we want to get to. We want to get
Yeah,
to
sure.
and we're
Yeah.
talking about happiness in dentistry. We're
What
not
I,
there
lo-
yet,
what,
but
what I loved is when you were saying
Interesting.
about the old school thinking in psychology was resilience was kind of fixed. There was a limit to our capacity to be resilient, and you're saying that now the modern thinking is that actually there is no capacity. We can keep changing, and I guess
absolutely.
as a species, because we're living longer and longer. I heard on the radio just today the oldest man in England died today. He was 115. So people are now going to be routinely getting over the 100 mark. So the fact that we're not limited in our potential is really encouraging because,
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
but it's true, isn't
true,
it? Because
yeah,
if
yeah.
we genuinely thought that our behaviours and our ability and our capacity was fixed, if you're, I don't know, 50 or 60, but back in the day, you might only live for another 5 or 10 years.
That's true.
That's
Why
it.
bother?
But the thing is, if you could
Sorry.
be having another 50 years, that's a significant amount of time, and being able to
Yeah,
remap
definitely,
yourself
yeah.
and keep growing and learning is hugely
Well, they say,
powerful.
don't you? I mean, this is nothing. Well, it's sort of related, I suppose. In the number of divorces in 50s and 60s is going through the roof because people are well realising there is another path to follow, which probably is part of mindfulness, isn't it? I suppose of self-awareness and confidence, rather than the fact of I'll just stick with this because it'll be over in
Yeah.
a few years. It's very interesting.
We're heading into a marriage guidance.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. It's a very interesting thinking.
Bringing it back. Mission Mindful campaign. You've got this Mission Mindful campaign that you're pushing. What's that all about?
So last year, I was thinking about creating a social media campaign and what that could look like. And, I talk about evidence-based tools, but there's a big amount of there's a large amount of dental professionals that really don't understand what these tools are. And so I really wanted to increase awareness of using mindfulness at work. So it was very much a workplace kind of initiative. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to do this yearly? And I created then the campaign, and the vision really is to help dental professionals really apply mindfulness both with patients and at home as well. So that was the kind of idea. I created a free kind of digital calendar with 31 mindfulness prompts. And the idea is, to do that challenge and to start exploring well-being and take those small daily actions. And this, it's kind of fundamental to well-being. I really want to emphasize taking this proactive approach when it comes to, not only our well-being, but also our peak performance. That's really kind of crucial. And so that's the reason for the campaign.
Brilliant, good.
I love the fact of sorry, I was just thinking, I love the fact of the link to peak performance, because that's an interesting one, isn't it? The fact of, will people respond to that? Some people will respond to that, won't they? Because they'll think, I just thought mindfulness was being, I don't know, soft and floppy. I don't know, but that they would look at it in a different way. But by relinking it to the fact of actually you'll perform better.
Yes.
I think
that's clever. I think I like that. That's really good.
I think one of the fundamental problems when we talk about this topic is it always seems to start from the point of there's something wrong with me and I need to get better. But it is, isn't it?
Right,
when you hear the phrases, mindfulness, well-being, resilience, stress, they all kind of come with this undertone of, well, there's something wrong with me and I need to go down this path to fix myself. Or get better.
That's true. Yeah.
You were saying about your own bout of kind of burnout and depression, and all those kind of words go into the same bucket. But to spin it on its head and say, actually, you could still be in a great place, but you will perform better as a result
really
of
clever.
doing that.
Really
So
good
that's quite
idea.
nice,
I like that.
Quite a nice twist on it.
Thank you. I've been trying to do that. It's really difficult to get that message across, I think, in copy, but it's always been my idea to really emphasize on the positive wellbeing markers. It's not just about stress management, although mindfulness can be quite great for that. It's also about thriving and having a sense of meaning and feeling engaged and energized at work. And this is where this tool is amazing. And certainly now I do help to manage stress and with mindfulness, but predominantly I'm using it to focus. I'm using it to align my actions with my values and to take positive steps forward. I'm using it in different ways. And even if we kind of zoom out and look at the way mindfulness is being used amongst professions outside of dentistry. So we're looking at, athletes, for example, they're already using mindfulness. as a daily to help them get to those optimal performance zones. And so I think absolutely it could do with a PR little change, and that's certainly something that I'm going to keep exploring in the language that I'm using when I talk about well-being.
But also for you as a practitioner, I imagine it means it's a more uplifting day and your work is more fulfilling if you're talking about the positive aspects of it, as opposed to it being a bit doom and gloom about let's help people out of problems. It's the other end of things, which is like, imagine how much, you've got an amazing life. Imagine if you turn up by 10%, what that would look like.
Exactly. This is why I love positive psychology, and I was so drawn to it, because traditional psychology really focuses on you going from a minus number back to zero. And it's about kind of reducing depressive feelings, feelings of anxiety and burnout. And of course, that is important. But there's an aspect that's often missed in psychology, which is why positive psychology was brought into the play in the first place, which is to kind of address that problem and get us from zero to the plus state, those kind of peak performance states.
It's my daughter's a psychologist, and what she did was that's exactly the way she did it. She said you get people counselors take you from minus 10 to 0, but she said then they don't really do anything else. So hers is the same as what you're saying, is you get people to a point and then you say, right, well, where do we go from here? I think it's a great way of looking at it.
I think the majority of people, if you said to them about psychology, they would think of negative to zero. Fixing problems. Just get people back to some sort of equilibrium. You've done a great job. Whereas you're saying, well, imagine people who are in a good state of equilibrium. How far could they go the other way? So that positive end of things.
Yeah, amazing.
But I think what you said is right, that there's probably a perception challenge in that people don't think of psychology in that context. They think of it,
very true.
At the end that we've been, kind of talking about through that sort of, the burnout, the depression, building resilience, that side of things. So it's a bit of an uphill battle, isn't it, to make sure you've got that covered. Mahrukh, we get to a point where we can't let you go without answering two questions, and I know you've answered them before, so it's not easy, but we still got to go through the same process, because no one gets to leave without answering them.
And we didn't check what your last answers were.
No, no. So we're hoping they're not copies. If you could be a fly on a wall in a situation, where would you be and who would be there?
So can this be a scenario that happened in the past?
Yeah, of course it can.
Yeah. Wicked. Okay, so it would be Serena Williams during Wimbledon when she's in a negative position. So she's like down a set or something. And I want to, be there to kind of know what she's thinking. Like I would absolutely love to know her mental strategy, because she talks a lot about this big emphasis on, yes, like she had to put the time and effort into training, but a big part of that training was the mental aspect. So I would absolutely love to know like what affirmations she's using, what she's thinking, how she focusing on one step at a time rather than the big picture and getting freaked out that she's down quite a bit.
And I think people like that, it must be quite hard. A phenomenal tennis player, and because she's so successful, arguably for those people it may be even harder to cope when they are down, because they're used to winning. So training that skill all the time is probably quite a hard thing to do.
I think actually the athletes that are doing well are really good at managing their emotions, and they're really resilient. So they've had to work on the mental game massively hard, and a lot of them, almost all of them, have got sports psychologists, and this is what you work with a sports psychologist. So I actually think that they probably are really, really good at this, and we could learn a lot from it. So yes, we're not competing at Serena Williams level, but in smaller ways we are. We might be doing really complex cases. We might be public speaking in front of thousands, whatever it might be, whatever your big mountain to climb is. There are those challenges, and so how do you kind of flip that over and go from that sensitivity to actually this is a challenge that I can do.
We all have our own set point or whatever that is.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool.
And our follow up is, if you could meet somebody, you're going to go for a stroll through the woods with somebody and have a conversation. Who would you like to meet?
I'm going to stick with the whole athletes kind of theme I've got going on. So I will go with Michael Jordan because, again, he's quite a big one when it comes to mindset. So he has several really interesting videos around growth mindset. So I just love to know how he coped with all of his failures, because we often don't hear about those challenges with athletes, but he's gone through a lot. And how did he then kind of flip it around from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? So I'd love to have really candid kind of chats around.
Have you seen The Last Dance, the series about his career?
No, I haven't actually. I do want to see that. That sounds
it's phenomenal.
You've got a great stat on it, actually, haven't you?
Yeah,
that's Michael Jordan, isn't it?
Well, so through his career, his win rate of matches is only something like 34%.
Wow,
which is, for somebody who's so incredibly successful, he would have also had to deal with loss, week after week after week. But in The Last Dance, he is, I would imagine he was an incredibly difficult person to be in a team with, because the standards that he set and the expectations of his teammates were ridiculous. But to his credit, he never asked anyone to do anything that he wasn't prepared to do himself. So in terms of training, commitment, work rate, but he looks like he was an incredible taskmaster in that he didn't allow anybody a day off. Everybody had to show up all the time.
Yeah. So I probably don't like that aspect, but certainly the mindset. And there's a famous quote where he says, "Because I fail, I succeed." So he's got some interesting psychology around that. So it'd be great to explore that more.
Absolutely.
No, brilliant.
Mahrukh, thank you. That was really good fun. Always lovely speaking to you. I'm glad you're doing well. You've got a real vibe about you. You seem to be really enjoying what you're doing at the moment. So from that point of view, it's absolutely fabulous.
Thank you so much.
No problem at all. And great. Hopefully we'll see you again soon at some point too.
Yeah. I'm booking the next one in about another year and a half.
Exactly.
Yes, let's do it.
Lovely. Look after yourself. Cheers, Mahrukh. Keep well.
Thanks, Mahrukh.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.